Hello, we're going to start. This is expanding the palette for digital experiences. And I know that over the last couple days and tomorrow, there have been really great examples of how digital can help promote and encourage empathy, digital for accessibility. And this is an opportunity to share examples of digital that promote fun and kinesthetic experiences and mental breaks for visitors that are really important in combating museum fatigue or having intergenerational experiences. And so on the panel with me is Chad Weinard, on my farthest right, indie technologist and works with the Williams College Museum of Art. Jason Alderman, we're going down. Jason Alderman from Cloud Chamber, Seema Rao from Brilliant Idea Studio, and I'm Emily from the North Carolina Museum of Art. Our plan for today is we're going to look at some case studies and then go into a charrette, where we will all be active participants in thinking of these kind of multi-sensory experiences that we can create for visitors. So first is the NCMA. In 2017, this summer, we reinstalled and reopened our African gallery from an 800-ish square foot space to a 3,000 square foot space. And in that were three rooms or three galleries dedicated to a learning space, which we called Threads of Experience. And we developed with curators, with our marketing department, with exhibition design, a set of learning outcomes that would guide the design of both the gallery space as well as Threads of Experience. Because it was connected to our African collection, of which we have many textiles, we wanted Threads of Experience to focus on African textiles, and we wanted to provide analog and digital experiences. So you'll see on this picture some of, this is on our opening weekend, we have a floor-to-ceiling collaborative loom, we have a magnet board and reading spaces and objects from the collection in that space, an embroidery station. But we also wanted to create a digital interactive of some sort. But we didn't know what we wanted really, and that was our kind of unclear idea was reflected in our RFP. We kept it really open. The statement on top that we seek a vendor to create a digital interactive experience was like the most guidelines we really provided for our vendors. We provided two of the outcomes for that specific space for the digital interactive to create a sense of awe and wonder and increased curiosity about African art and culture. We also created just some general background information that we thought could be helpful to our vendors. We received, and also in our RFP, we had $15,000 for the project. We also wanted to see what they could do with if we had more funding, or what would their big blue sky ideas be. So we asked for two more ideas, or ideas if you could have 15, 25, or 50,000. So we really left this open opportunity to see what we would get back. We got 5 proposals, and 4 of them were essentially similar. There was a map of Africa. You could click on the objects from where they were from, and you get more information. And a lot of what we had talked about in planning this session was a digital does not have to be this compendium of everything that does not fit on a label, that it can be something more than that. And the RFP we were drawn most to, and we'll talk to those vendors in a second, where their response was almost as open-ended as our RFP. They provided 3 ideas that would include a design process once we signed, and so our team was actually more drawn to the idea of something that met our outcomes better, that was more, we felt, creative and outside the box. And so before I go into what that thing became, I just want to turn it over to Chad and Jason as your experience on the vendor side.
Yes, thank you. Certainly as an outside partner working with museums, this kind of brief is ideal to be able to be given a set of goals, some parameters like we want visitors to feel a sense of awe and wonder, and to know kind of the full scope of the new galleries and what was going to be in them, to know that those educational needs, those text panels throughout the gallery spaces were going to be full and complete and adequate, allowed us to go to the museum and say, let's partner on something creative together. Let's work on something that's perhaps a moment of delight, a moment of rest even from that learning environment, and let's create something that we might not even know from the beginning of the project where it's going to lead. The process was one that we were really interested in.
Thanks. And I'll just add that one approach that we take is we try to figure out what is the minimum thing that we want to build, what's the core experience that we want to try to create. And then we try to add layers on that. So the proposal has, this is what we're proposing, but we could also go in this direction, we could also go in this direction, so that it's a participatory, collaborative process with the client. And in this case, one of our directions that we had did have maps in it, and we found early on that that was a direction that they didn't want to go, and so we went in a completely different direction.
And I guess too, the unspoken direction and the bulk of the RFPs that we come across, you might see a fixed concrete list of we want this and this and this, and we want it done, sometimes we want it done this way with this and this and this. And for us as creative partners, those are RFPs that if we respond to them, we might respond to them with nothing on that list, but as an invitation to a conversation where we can dig down and get a sense of those real goals, and then maybe start a creative conversation. This was a project where we were in that conversation from the get-go.
So I think part of that process was inviting audience testing into the digital development of this digital screen. And what we ended up creating, which is you can see kind of a prototype on your right, is in the RFP we said we do have this 60-inch screen and we have a webcam and we have these technical things that we want to use. And so again, we added a little bit of what we had and then what would they do with it. And so we created, it's essentially, we'll see a video in a second, but this dynamic mirror that is made up of multiple smaller images from the African collection. And so when you stand in front of it, you are reflected back in objects from the collection. And the images get really small, so you can see a very detailed image of yourself, like this girl right here. Or you stand back, or the images, get bigger, and you lose sight of yourself, really, but you really get a chance to see the objects and look back at the gallery that maybe you just passed through and want to go back and visit. We heard through this through these focus groups that people wanted that time between viewing these objects and going into the learning space, or maybe not going, but just they wanted that mental break. They wanted opportunities to just rest and think about what they saw in a different way. And so what ended up coming, oh, is my video not showing up? Oh, hold on. So this is actually me and my family in front of it. That's my son jumping up and down, and many people much older than him jump up and down in front of the mirror, and they move their hands, and they get an opportunity, again, to play and be, and that's my husband moving his hands. So people move in front of this space and is in an area maybe that you don't always get to move around a lot. And so I'm going to stop there, and put it back up here and move on to the next study for Seema.
And because we're plugging our children, these are my children.
Yeah.
We do other things other than our children. But so my name is Seema. I was at the Cleveland Museum of Art for 17 years, which I realize I've now said 4 times at a podium at this conference. I left in February, but I'm talking about a space that opened last May. And so those of you who were maybe at Museums in the Web got to experience it. It's called Art Lens Studio, and the larger space, I was also part of that, which is Art Lens, has also just opened. So, for me, one of the things that really brought all of us together is that methodology should be so sound that you can scale it. And for the content side people, and I think for the developers as well, you want to think about what is the essential idea. And that's where we really started. And if you don't start with that, then you will always be focused on the money and how big the space is and all of those parameters. And truthfully, this is a great example. We planned this talk before we knew where this room was. We just came up with a way to do it that we could scale. And then I got here, and Emily was already here because she's always more organized than I am. And I was like, whoa, we have a big room. And we scaled our idea. So you already do that in life. So when you're thinking about digital projects and when you think about content, that's where you want to kind of start, the idea. And that's what brings us all together. So ours was somewhat different in that, Emily is a great example of the loosest way you can go. We were the opposite. We were sort of like a school teacher who gives you a scaffolding, and then you work within that scaffolding. That's the way that we decided to do it. We had some really strong learning goals that we needed. We also really wanted to make sure we minimized screens. I realized the picture I'm using is children touching a screen, but but they were my children. But that we did a lot of things that used kinesthetic experiences. And then more than anything else, we wanted people to have an experience that focused on their constructed meaning. We were really interested in constructivist philosophies rather than fact-based experiences. So how do we do that? Well, here's an overview of this space. So you can see it's a pretty big space. We gave it space, and this is something that makes us different. So if, that's the second thing. So the first thing is we were much more strict about what we wanted. We also had a lot more space. But at the sort of center, there's a lot of things that were the same. And because of the time, I'm not going to talk extensively about this. I did tweet out yesterday in preparation for today's talk a blog post I wrote a little bit more about these diagrams, which Jason said were complicated this morning. But sort of at the essence, if you imagine that you have objects, and I call them objects because you could be from any kind of institution. You have something in your collection. That thing in that collection is a little bit like, it's sort of like a time machine. It has lots of parts to it. And you walk in and a curator would be happy to talk about it for 3 hours. And you could listen to them and they'd have so many different facets of ideas that are in there. And so you can imagine that as some sort of complicated circle thing right here, a CMYK, kind of thing. And the thing is, your visitors don't want all those things. They just want the one that's opaque. Now, how do you know that? Well, you can definitely do audience testing, and we did do extensive audience testing, but then you also have professional experience. And so you pick out that opaque circle based on what you believe and what you get from your visitors, and that's the kernel of knowledge that you're going to use for the interactive. Our big goal was, we kind of did this, and this is sort of how, if you look at it, these are all really object-based, and this is really big idea-based. And the truth is, when you're developing content, you're doing both. You're kind of balancing, you're kind of going back and forth between this really big idea and being really systematic and thinking about the whole of your installation or whole of your interpretive plan, and then also making sure that you drill down into the objects so that they both resonate with each other. Because if you do one half or the other half, they might not meet in the middle like a bridge. So it's almost like building a bridge where you start on this side and you start this side, keep going. The other thing that we wanted to make sure is, and this is something we talked extensively about, is that you're thoughtful of your stakeholders. And I've been in a number of panels where we've said things about, let's say, one group, one silo in your institution is really averse to changing the ideas. Like I was part of, and they very generously played this morning, a game that we did in the green room, where we came up with sort of clickbait titles about very boring works of art. Thank you if you submitted one. And the thing that's really hard, and we talked about a lot there, but I know has come up repeatedly in this conference, is that you are walking a very fine line. And so the reason that it's important when you're doing content, when you're planning it straight up, that you are thoughtful of the stakeholders is because you will be burned. I have been burned. Don't go so far down the road and not check in with, and I mean, curators are certainly one of them, but actually a really important stakeholder for us turned out to be our director and our trustees. And we should have checked in about content because they don't really know how it works. They just know that they want it to be right. So it's better to sort of give them, show them a little bit of transparency so that down the road you're not sort of stuck. So I'm about to shift gears. Do you have any questions about our case studies before I shift gears? You can ask questions later too, just curious. So we're gonna do a bit of a charrette. You guys are going to make the most amazing digital experiences ever. And Jason will tell you about it. But before we do, we want to kind of get everything out there. And so Emily's going to let me type in those circles. Here. Good. You type in those circles? Yes, I can. Can you guys see it if I type in this circle? Is the screen big enough for you to see? I might just have to type outside of the circle. I'll just do that. So, here,
Oh, yeah.
So, where's the typing part of typing? I just love how every tech conference has tech problems. You start talking, Emily will figure this out. What do screens do well? Call it out, friends. I see you all. They play media well. So can you just, can you define media for us? Yay! Yes. Okay. Anything else? Change easily. Can you can you say a little bit more?
One picture now, another picture tomorrow.
So change easily. Okay.
They
Attract
attract attention.
attention. Great. What else?
Having multiple content
Mm-hmm.
without increasing the size, like multiple translations, for instance.
Yeah.
Engage multiple visitors.
Engage multiple visitors. Can I ask, could I put that near attract attention? Would you say that those are sort of related things? Or not? I'm just curious. No. Okay, that's cool.
They allow you to show things that you wouldn't otherwise be able to put in the gallery.
Okay, so tell me some things like that.
A process, how something is made.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Or things that you couldn't otherwise show, yeah.
And is that because there's not room on the text panel?
No, well.
Or is it the format? Like a series of X-ray, like if you have a conservation images, I think Ray was saying, like you have like maybe an X-ray version and an infrared image, and you might have multiple ideas. Is that?
Yeah, I'm trying. So
Different
yeah,
formats.
exactly. I'm trying to probe because you could put an X-ray on a panel. You could put some process photographs on a panel.
Right.
So what makes the screen do it well?
Number of interruption.
Okay. So.
And the fact that you can show a temporal
Mhm.
experience.
Yes. Okay. Great. Okay. Any other like glaring things we're missing?
But we allow visitors to create things without like a ton of materials or mess. You create something and the next person can come in.
Right. And I will say that that happened to be the premise of the space that I had done. So yes, I totally agree with that. That was my idea. Any other things? Any other glaring things? This is what screens do well. Cheap and easy to deploy. I will push back a little. Are they cheaper than a placard? Easier to deploy than a placard? Okay. Yeah.
Visitor brings them to the museum.
Yes, so they're visitors bring that. Yep. Any other things?
Show works or buildings or historic sites that have been lost or destroyed.
So I did just recently illustrate a whole book. I could draw those. What makes it better?
You could show it in motion, you could show ways to show the evolution through time,
Mhm.
take an interactive
Mhm.
and walk people through a historic site that no longer exists.
Can I say there can be more complex than a still drawing? Does that summarize what you just said?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other do-wells?
Show a feed of information that updates automatically.
Uh-huh. So show live feed, is that okay? All right. Yeah, Daniel.
Interactive exploration of something. For example, carrying on from that one, we looked at the 3D model of an object. We've just added some touch screens to galleries at the villa,
Uh-huh.
which allow you to explore these tiny coins and rings and other objects that in these larger display cases, you can't explore them from every possible
Uh-huh.
angle in person. Some of the cases have like 70 objects.
Uh-huh.
To have
Uh-huh.
that wall space to put like multiple angles of each object wouldn't necessarily be
So you brought up complexity. I think the detail and the zooming in was also something that nobody has said. All right. Any other glaring things? Yes. Say it again? Light, yes. So I thought you said life, and I was like, whoa, this talk is really going differently. Yes. All right, so what don't they do well? So this is like if you were doing something, and I'm going to go back to that question. If you could do a panel, what does the panel do better? What does the other tools, what does a human do better? What don't they do well? I'm going to go with do badly as my sentence. So, sorry, everyone said it, there was a lot of talking at once. Say it again, they break. Okay.
They're not very tactile.
Can you talk a little bit more? Because somebody else said you could touch it. So just share, push a little more.
It's a flat plane, whereas something that's three-dimensional, we're talking about exploring a three-dimensional object, has dimensionality that a screen does not have.
I'm hoping that I'm summarizing that, hopefully. Flat plane, not truly 3D. Yeah? Yes.
If we're considering these cons and not just things they do badly, I would nominate attract attention, because they
Yeah.
can, for
That's
as
right.
much as they attract
Yeah.
attention, that can be
That's
totally
right.
distracting and can dominate a visual,
Absolutely.
view in
Absolutely.
a way that you don't want.
Yep, yep. We're talking about things that screens don't do well, or cons for using screens, or where you might use something else.
They're antisocial.
Can you say a little more?
So they, especially if they have sound associated with them, they limit conversation points, and often with larger groups, there's sort of competitive space to be in front of them. Especially the kids, I'm thinking in particular, so I find them sometimes they cause conflict early, and they are mesmerizing, so people just sit there sort of like, I often call TV technological Valium, so they just sit there and like, rather than talking to the person they came with.
Technological volume. Yes, I don't have any more space to say that, but that's an awesome phrase. I spelled mesmerizing wrong, but I don't have to spell that. Okay. 2 E's? Mesmerize. How about this? Let's there it's done. I don't use a Mac. I can't not right click. Any other? We only have about 2 more minutes. Yes.
That can be scary or intimidating,
Scary.
like touchscreen with older residents.
Uh huh.
That maybe this isn't so true with screens as in like with virtual reality experiences, but the technology can distract from the actual content at times.
And you said something that I think is important. It's maybe not true. The thing is, and I said this before, you have to balance your professional opinion and the visitor experience. If you feel it to be true, you should go with that. Like, honor the things that, if you believe that, I think that could be true. And all of these, the opposite can be true in some situations, right? All right, so any other bad?
They can be
Call it out, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
accessible, challenge.
Accessibility, like ADA, accessibility, yeah. Yeah?
They can be overused.
Okay. So last thing, and we only have like a two minutes, 1 minute maybe. What do you want them to do? What is your hope? Say it again? Be magic. Just like me, Dan. Yes, be magic. Okay. We'll let him just think of that because we don't have time to dig in. I know. I figured. Be perfect maybe is a good thing to say. Any other things? Be more meaningful?
I want them all to talk to each other.
All connected.
So one that you have all of them
Seamless. How about all connected, seamless? This is sad how badly I can spell. I do know how to spell.
Visitor look at the actual object
Visitors
more
connect to real
or in a more meaningful way.
All right. Now we're going to keep these up in a minute. We'll format it. We'll do that. But we'll keep these up because these are your guiding principles. You are going to use these last 4 to come up with what Jason's going to turn around his notes in a second. And we're gonna just split the room. We're gonna split it down the middle and then in half this way. So find your group. I know that means some of you will be friends. So we'll go down like 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th row, you guys will this way, and then everyone else will be on that group. This room, I think we want to go down. Daniel, you're in the 4th row. Yes, the 4th row. Is that 3rd row? Are you in the 3rd? Yes. So up to Alyssa, there'll be one group, and then behind Alyssa will be another group. You're going to gather up, and he's going to give you the assignment. Does everyone know what group they're in, or pretend and find a group? Yes? Everyone ahead, Dan, can you raise your hand? Dan, can you raise your hand? Everyone ahead of Dan is in one group in that section, and everyone behind him is in a different group. There we go.
Can we bring up this slide briefly, and then we'll come back to that?
We run out of time. Sorry, they were just so talkative about screens. Okay, good.
It's all you. Hi, sorry, we're from Further Miami.
Okay, everyone. Take 30 seconds, get to know each other. We are going to do a design charrette. Who here has heard the term charrette before? Okay, we've got a few people. A charrette is a term for a design activity where you go divergent and you come up with a bunch of ideas and then you converge and come up with, iterate on your final idea. And so these are the parameters. I'll come back to this slide in just a moment. This is just the general flow of how we're going to take time. So first we're going to start with a 15-minute first design phase where you're going to try to come up individually with a ton of different ideas. And then the next 15 minutes are you're going to present 3 ideas within the group and try to winnow this. You basically have an idea shootout within your group, come up with one idea that you're all going to, that you all like. And then the second design round is 10 minutes, and you're all going to collaborate working on that one idea to polish it. And then the last 5 minutes is presenting your final idea. So we'll have 4 final ideas that we'll be presenting. And we'll give you some rules in just a moment for the charrette on how to do this design and then the critique. But first, so the objective, your problem, is that you're going to be creating a multi-sensory experience with intergenerational draw for the Sandwich Museum, which is a completely real museum that totally exists. The goals are you're going to learn about various cultures through sandwiches and sandwich making, and you're going to foster dialogue about modern political, cultural, and social issues through making and eating sandwiches.
Don't laugh at our museum.
This is a very serious museum. Sandwiches are a very, very important part of many cultures. So the parameters is that it's going to be part of the permanent collection of the Sandwich Museum. It's going to be in the History of Sandwiches gallery. The materials that you'll have available are everything from archival sandwich material, photographs, brand logos, restaurant menus, video interviews with sandwichologists, which is totally a real profession from around the world. And then constraints, no actual food can be used in this gallery. The messes are just way too much to clean up, and the facility staff have said no way. The space that you have is 10 square feet, and your budget is $15,000. But again, with this RFP, we are encouraging you to scale this and show what kind of ways you might be able to build upon that experience if more grant money is available. So, any questions? So,
Oh, yes.
Yes.
That's exactly right. It's not in an exhibition. I'm sorry. It's not in an exhibition.
Yes.
It's in the permanent, yes. And it's part,
Yes.
it's in the galleries.
Right, it's not separate.
It's not separate. So for those people who want a meaningful connection to what is in your collection, that's what this is we're calling.
So what's in the collection of the Sandwich Museum?
You get to, yeah, you can make up a sandwich museum. We made it up. Yeah, we made it up. Can you believe that? We made it up. We've all
Seema,
eaten
you
a
gave it
sandwich.
up.
I'm sorry. We've all eaten a sandwich. You can figure it out. You have trust issues.
okay.
Say it again, Jane? Was it
The
Jane?
question was, who is the visitor?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is families. I know you are. It is families, so intergenerational groups. A lot of grandmas and grandchildren, and then guys who go to sporting events.
So we will cover this again at the 15-minute break before the critique session, after you've had the chance to sketch out a bunch of ideas. We highly recommend, if you don't have sketchbooks, we do have extra paper and pens that we can hand out, but everybody gets some. But when we are critiquing, focus on the idea and not the person. Talk about what works with it and what doesn't work versus I like that, I don't like that, I feel bad about that, I don't.
So right now you're working individually.
Yes. And then share your ideas in the way you'd like to hear them about, you're talking about a person or about yourself. So we will reposition this one. We've got a copy of the objective goals, parameters, and constraints over there. I'm going to position this one a little bit closer here by the projector.
Check on people and get it up.
15 minutes starts now, and this is what we're going to do, and we'll put the Word doc back up there.
So right now you're working individually.
Try to generate as many ideas as you can for what you're doing. It's very open-ended. And now, how do I go to there? Okay. Is there a way to go full screen for this?
Can we just do 2 columns?
No, cancel.
Can you just do 2 columns? Max are so different.
Yes.
It's so odd to me. I'm not a, if you knew me, you'd be like, I can't believe she's the girl who sings. Thanks. Thank you. I'm definitely not somebody who would, I didn't, Coven called my bluff. Yeah. Yeah. My kids are actually better at my presentation than I am. They're really good at it. Thank you. How about, let's do 3 and see what happens. There. That's weird, but happy. But did that help make it easier to see? No. Weird. Better.
We're gonna get another stack. Last one. Go.
The best laid plans and mice and men. Do we have a time check for this people? So, I was saying to one of the groups behind you, 15 minutes seems like a long time, but it's purposeful because it means that you go past the point where you're like, I have no more ideas. So just keep writing.
Does anybody else need papers?
I was like, wow, everybody has the same kind of pens as me. And then I realized, you're my pen. My pen. Dummy, Seema, dummy. Oh, you can't see that. Okay, that's pretty good. People can see that. Let's not make worse. Yay, Emily. That's close enough. data dive session at 11:30. What are we supposed to do at, at 11:30 we have to go to, we have to do that thing? Conference C, what's gonna happen?
Not sure. I
What's
think
it? I don't
Jeff is
know.
gonna. Jeff Seward is gonna make something.
Oh, God. I've been really nice to him this whole time. Like, not that I'm mean, but I've been really like, hi. Like, hopefully you're doing stuff.
Yeah.
He's great. How much more time do they have? Should I give them a time check?
He started at 2:51 and he's now 2:50. We actually have 10 more minutes. Okay. But if we want more time for them, can we give them 5 minutes and then truncate this part and allow time for the discussion?
Yeah, so why don't you say 5 minutes?
Take 5 more minutes.
Don't put it on the wall. Don't put it on the wall. No, no, no. Jason, not the wall.
Can we not put it on the wall?
No. They don't like it.
Oh, they don't?
They don't.
They don't like it.
But will they see?
I don't know. They yelled at us this morning
they
in the
did?
green room.
Okay.
Yeah. We had a green room sadness about that.
I feel like I should be doing it.
You should be doing the session.
No, but
You look the ringer
I
in the
should
session.
be coming up with more ideas. Sandwichologists.
Do you not drink? You have all the tickets.
Always forget.
Seema, did you sing? Did I miss that?
Yes.
In the presentation or
Yes.
in part of a karaoke thing?
Not part of the karaoke thing. I was the Ignite.
Oh, you were singing. Did you sing the whole night?
She sang.
I sang my Ignite.
That's awesome.
It was this fantastic like call and response thing. Like there was a setup and then she sang the second part and everyone else sang it as well. It was
I
brilliant.
sang my Ignite.
That's awesome.
Yeah, with it was like a cappella too. There's no music. There couldn't be any music because I couldn't cue it.
It was just
It's just me.
and MCN.
And me and Sam. But it is really bizarre. Like people in elevators like, you're the girl who sings. I'm like, I'm not the girl who sings. I'm not the girl.
I did not mean to tag myself as
I
that.
know, it's bizarre. I'm the girl who sings. Yes, I did sing. I sang Let It Go.
Really?
Mhm.
That was your call and response?
That was one of them.
Well,
And then
to which side
I Will
took it.
Survive.
Wow.
Just like a line or two. And for some of them, like, the crowd kept singing.
2 minutes.
The long ones. Don't you think I Will Survive they kept singing? Did they? Or which one?
Yeah.
The long ones? Yeah, there was like a couple changes was one where, and it was hard for me not to keep singing. I'm trying to think of another one that was hard. Sure, I'm glad that's done. I wouldn't have been scared to do it at night, but I was definitely stressed about
Yeah,
singing
it's a good idea.
with all those people.
That was a cool choice.
All right, is it getting close? 1 minute? Okay.
So now we have time to present and critique and pick one. Okay. Okay.
When they critique, I think, can I put back that other one? that you
Yes.
just- Oh, okay. Is it right here?
Yeah.
I don't read like a cool. No. Yeah. Okay. I hope it's.
Very good.
Is it time?
Time.
Jason?
Let's do it.
Do it.
This is time.
Is it time?
All right, we're switching to the next phase. Pencils down.
They already had their pencils done.
Okay, who here felt that felt like a long time? Who here felt that was felt like a short time? Okay, good. Usually as you get going, you start to get more and more ideas once you get kind of past that trough of like, wait a minute, oh, okay. And then, so this was all about generating as many ideas as possible. Now you're going to take 15 minutes, go around your group, explain the ideas that you had, and since you're doing this verbally, usually what we would do in a charrette is we would pin or tape everybody's things up on the wall, but we do not have, these walls aren't particularly stick-upable. We tried sticking Post-its to them, it didn't work. So
Don't do that.
please don't do
The
that.
hotel doesn't like it.
Neither does the hospital.
Neither does the hospital.
Yes. So if you can just do it verbally, go around, and then I would suggest have maybe a voting style of like hands raised, voting people on and off the island. No, focus on the ideas, and we'll bring up the slides one more time. Oh, okay. Yes.
And when you're trying to decide on what is best of your group, and so you only need one that goes to the next phase from your group. So all of these people, you vote the best one. Think about what screens do well, what they do badly, and most importantly, what we hope them to do. So this should be like a guiding principle. Be magic, be perfect, be more meaningful, all connected and seamless, help visitors, connect to real collections, and make meaning. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We also have those. We also have those on these boards.
But we're
So
gonna
if
put
you
it
want,
up. We'll
yeah,
put it
we'll
up.
we'll put it up. But you're focusing on what works and what doesn't work for what we've got up there right now. So.
15.
15. So you have another 15 minutes. We'll give you a 10-minute and a 5-minute warning.
I'm gonna go, I'll take this side, you take that side? Okay.
My favorite of which is sort of the simplest one, where you come up to a large screen and everybody's replaced by a different sandwich ingredient, right? So imagine like grandma, little kid, dad all come up. They automatically do nothing else but a sandwich. Somebody's the bread, somebody's the bacon, the person on the right is the bread. And so suddenly you're a sandwich. And every time you exit and enter, you're a new sandwich. So, and then from that, you can like learn different sandwich facts or sort of overlays that tell you, and you decide whether you were a good or bad sandwich. So second idea is also social requirements. Is we have 3 different stations, and it's like an exquisite game because you have to select either the bread or the sandwich on the bread, and so you all have to select one, and then it forms in the sense that maybe it's a hologram, but you don't know what the other person is picking. That's all. And then it forms together one have to decide to give you some kind of a good or not. So it's this sort of gamified situation where you're performing a sandwich and what it is. And in those interfaces, you get to learn about the different ingredients as you're making them.
So if we're now voting on those 2 items, or remembering everybody's idea and then doing it again, or just notes? I like that one. Okay. So you go again. Your 2, one is what's the title of the first one? The human sandwich.
That's the title. That's yes, the human sandwich.
And the other one is was it corpses? Corpse sandwich.
Yes, exquisite sandwich. Yes, thank you. Exquisite sandwich.
There you go.
Okay, so 2 ideas, one well formed, like some sort of small machine, maybe it's a thing, where you get a smell and you have to guess. Made that smell. Another
All right, so you have 10 more minutes.
Talking about Earl Sandwich, the supposed inventor, order a card game. You can the cards themselves are some of the sandwiches, a game you can invent around that.
Yeah, big is not gonna fast forward.
Yeah, that's enough. Next.
Okay, sort of just like, maybe it's a live game like this. Okay, so my idea is based on the idea of games told by actors, but also like in culture, Indian cultures, what is the equivalent of sandwich? India, China, Ethiopia, Iceland, Malaysia, and this would be based on basically the most upscale ideas interact with VR experience in a chef's kitchen, like a top chef from any one of those countries, and it's a game where you are the sous chef competing with a critic to submit this recipe that this chef has created that represents sandwiches. That's way upscaled. The most downscaled version is recipe cards. So you're submitting your own recipes about what the dining might be like. You're also submitting recipes of other chefs. Somewhere in the middle is a proof of like scale graphics where you're seeing the chefs responding, talking about the cultures, making things in front of you in a video. Users can submit their own videos of making their own sandwiches that represent their culture. Not Western. Amazingly simple to talk. And it's called Sandwich Wars. And a recipe for that.
Can I just undermine what I said though? Because I think it was a working class like sandwich. And I was thinking of
One is to give the user an option
No, my
to
point
say,
is
I
that
would eat that ingredient or I would never eat that ingredient. To show them liver roast and chicken or
just because my mind is hovering in like, how are we getting to
Because
like
there's series of questions and you can create a kind of a Myers-Briggs personality profile based on your sandwich selection.
the hardest part?
You're this kind of person, you eat this and you eat that. And you ask them, do you agree with that, not agree with that, and you build being labeled by that. The second idea is a head-to-head competition where you give everyone uses their tablets and they create crazy sandwiches. Then it rotates around and everybody picks a crazy sandwich that is crazy made, and then they do votes. And you do a red robin style, so at the end somebody's crazy sandwich, somebody else is crazy. And then the last one is just invent your own sandwich.
Alright, mine kind of similar, make your own sandwich kind of idea that I think you have over there, not the name, but basically the idea is that each one has this plastic piece, put it all together, has a chip in it, reads what's really kind of assembled together, and you take it over to an oven or a prep board or whatever, and it reads what all those ingredients are you kind of put together. And basically then gives you a display for everyone to see what your actual sandwich is, what's its closest kind of representation of the real world is, what's going on, origin story of it, history, background, and culture, places that serve, list out those, and then also give you the best place to order, so if you make a little bit, tells you where the best
How are they doing with this one? How far through do you think they're your reports? We're 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Give it its own
Oh, shoot.
give you all the
No, we
information.
said 360.
Whenever you leave, you also give them a printout of this, you basically go out
Oh, yeah.
I was like, what? 2 plus 5 is 7.
You know, you've got your own sandwich, you make it at home.
In 2 minutes, I say 5 minutes.
Sort of a choose your own
Yes,
adventure,
that's all I need to know.
series of
2 minutes, say 5 minutes, and then
adjectives,
they have to pick their idea, right?
cold,
Mac was just getting
one piece of bread, two pieces of bread, big, small, healthy, very unhealthy, spicy, and sweet. Like sort of there's a sort of compilation of all the different sandwiches. You sort of whittle it down to just one. That's what I'm having for lunch today, sort of just in a very different sense. The other one was sort of you take a description of a sandwich from the historic menus, the collections. The more flowery and expansive the better. Sort of come up with a name, style.
Obviously, goes with that
Kind
sound.
of thing with your company
Totally.
group. You submit the name, it's back to you the actual sandwich where it was from.
It does help with a friend. Maybe some people heard Charrette and they're like, I'm out of here. No, I know. But our Vine one was when we were doing Vine, do you remember that one? It was so packed. It was the same size. Hey, Jason, can I ask you something? Hey, excuse me, can I have your attention? I'm sorry to interrupt these wonderful ideas. Just 1 second. I'm sorry to interrupt your wonderful ideas, but I'm going to do that. You should finish up whoever's speaking, whatever last thoughts those people had, but then you need to move into the next part of this phase, which is that you need to discuss which idea you're going to take to the next round. And so it can be a combination of ideas or just one idea that you run with. All right?
You have 5 minutes.
There's video playing of one's animation of sandwiches being made from the very first one in history, and then there's sandwiches being made around the world. They're so weird. Smells of sandwiches being made, different sandwiches from different cultures that are being pumped in there. And you're also hearing stories of people talking about their favorite sandwich in different countries. The other idea is a big room of foamy parts that represent different breads from around the world, all kinds of, and then different fillers, and the breads, let's say, are all colored.
So how long are you in Pittsburgh for? You're do all the tomorrow or Saturday?
No. Yeah, Saturday. I'm going to go home very early on Saturday morning. I have a baby shower to go to. It's only an hour and a half.
Baby shower?
No, the baby shower is 2 hours, but it's only an hour and a half from here, from my house. So.
Oh, you're driving?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. I wasn't even going to stay tomorrow night. So debated it, but I screwed up my hotel stuff, so I was like, all right, I'm staying then. I couldn't cancel at that point.
Right.
They were going to charge me, so I was like, if you're going to charge me for the bed, I'm going to stay here.
Right. Enjoy the extra night.
That's
Might
right.
as well.
That's right.
I'm leaving tomorrow at 1. We also have a baby shower on Saturday, but up in Boston, so we're all flying back to Raleigh. Then my husband is coming back from South Korea tomorrow. We're all getting back tomorrow. Really good. Really good. It's been
And
awesome.
then the baby was with your
with my mom.
No, sorry, your son.
My son is with my husband's dad. So, and then we're all gonna get on a plane on Saturday morning. Then we're all gonna get on a plane on Saturday and fly up to Boston for also baby shower.
Must be the season.
There's January babies.
Yeah, this is January baby too. Yeah, and I had the same situation. No, I was gonna say something else. Nikhil, I was telling Nikhil was telling me that his son is Nikhil. Do you know him?
I don't.
Yeah, okay, he's from the Orange.
Okay.
And he was talking about how his son is 18 months old. No, he's 2. And it's like he's definitely changed into not a baby anymore.
Right.
And I was telling him the story one time when my Maya was little. She and her sister are 2 years apart, so she must have been just under 2.
Yeah.
I don't think that the baby. There wasn't. Maybe the baby was here or the baby was coming. The baby was a word that we used.
Okay. Yeah.
And so she was listening to the radio and she goes, Why are they so mean to each other? I was like, I don't think that song is mean. And it was because it was baby, baby, baby. And I was like, that's so funny.
Everybody seems right more on a giant piece of paper.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so we already have this stuff up here.
Yeah.
That's good. So we're going to offer those to those corner groups.
You should tell them. Great. Why didn't you tell them?
Okay.
We could just clear this off if one of them wants to use this table to write.
Or they could just use the back of a chair.
There's a picture back there too.
Picture.
We got in trouble. They're scary.
Put it on the floor, I guess.
They could put it on the floor, or they could put it on a chair.
Right lightly.
Yeah, right lightly. Somebody should tell them.
Tell me about this book, Seema.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about it.
So basically, it is a process that takes from appreciative inquiry, which is something they use a lot in businesses to
I'm not familiar
grow.
with it.
Yeah, it came out of Case Western Reserve, which is in Cleveland. So that's how I was familiar with it.
Got it.
But basically, it's like a strategic planning process. So I took it and I adapted it for people. So their process is different than mine in the end. But it's just it's basically a process to focus on positivity and self-growth.
Nice. That's right. So it's for individuals.
It is for
1 minute remaining. 1 minute remaining.
Yep. So it has 2 main sections. One is just about you, and then the second is about you at work.
Oh, nice. I like did you intentionally leave the beginning sections blank?
No, the real one is, this is my proof copy.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a joke on it.
I know. No, the conclusion is actually empty in the real book.
Intentionally empty.
Yeah. Well, you fill it in. It says that I can only do so much of the conclusion. You need to fill it in.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, but no, this is just because what happened was I knew I was so behind because Rob and I were working on a book.
Okay.
And so I had 2 books in one morning. Wow. It was crazy. And so then I basically said to him, that's why our book with him wasn't done, because I was like, I just can't do both.
Right.
So
What's that book about?
change, surviving change. So, yeah, that book is.
Okay, everyone, we are moving on to the next phase. The next phase is designing for round 2. So you've figured out which idea you've put together from all your best ideas, and you're going to be designing that. So you diverged with a whole bunch of different ideas, and now you're converging on a single idea. So with this, work together as a group. We have some of the big posters on easels. If you want to make visual aids, you can claim one of those, or we've also placed some of the paper by the groups if you want to sketch. You don't have to have visuals with this. You can describe it. Just work out the details of your final idea so that you can present it to the other 3 groups. Thank you. You have 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Should we go tell people that? I feel like they weren't listening. Maybe you should tell people that they weren't listening to you.
3:27.
3:27.
That's great. Then people will present. It'll likely take more than 5 minutes, and then we'll wrap up, summarize, and done. So how do you like being independent? Actually, all 3 of you are actually independent, right? And how do
I like it.
You like it? Prefer it?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't have done it before, unless I had done that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, it's stressful. Like the money sort of situation is stressful. Is your husband independent?
Yeah, he is
Yeah.
independent.
Yeah. So, but I like it a lot.
Yeah.
I like it. Like we kind of hopefully structured it so that we're gonna have the much of December off.
Nice. What is your husband?
He started this independent company, and
Oh.
I cannot. Yes.
So he has his Brilliant Idea Studio was his company. Is
Yeah.
his company.
We
Now it's
just
both your
started 6 months before I left. Yeah. We planned for 2 years for both of us to go off eventually. We met at the art museum, and then like his wife, and then
So he's a museum guy too.
yeah, he's an education guy. So yes, so he was the liaison between the museum and teachers, and then he went to work in arts administration.
Okay, so you guys 2 years before you left, you were financially planning for being off, or being like starting your own thing. Wow. And how is it working together?
Oh, we worked together before, so it was great.
So you're both at Cleveland.
Yeah, we were both at the same museum. We worked together. Our desks were next to each other.
You were used to seeing each other 24/7, or almost 24/7.
Yeah,
and then
yeah. In fact, I said to him the other day in the car, I said, do you think you've been married to my house? You like been with her this much? And he was like, I don't know. Do you not? Like, it was just funny. I was like, I didn't ever think about it really. Oh, because we had gone to an event, like a benefit thing.
Right.
And I have a friend. We have friends where like we knew the spouses. He knew the guy, and I knew the girl.
Right.
And they married each other. You know how that is. Like,
Yeah, sure.
And they've been married like as long as us. They got married the same year as us. And so she loves to dance, and so I love to dance. We were dancing, and both of our husbands said, you know, when we were dating, we might when we were dating, we had all gone to the same kinds of parties and stuff. He said, when we were dating, I might have pretended to dance, but now I don't have to.
You're mine, so I don't need to pretend.
So they were like hanging out, and I was laughing because I was like, I think he's avoiding me. And he was like, I'm with you all the time. We can't afford to.
I remember a while ago, there was a Slate article that basically was this journalist documented her experience of essentially literally being
Isn't she cute? I love little humans.
To the screen or into the thing, and once you do that,
So cute. What a sport her mom is, huh? Little humans.
Or using the collection. Or like running with the collection.
Sure. This is very odd, but I'm pretty sure that Alyssa and I have the same skirt on. we don't have the same style, so it's funny that we've styled it very differently. But I've seen her all day, so it's not like I haven't seen her yet.
Yes, there you go.
All right, 5-minute warning. At the end of 5 minutes, we're going to present. You're going to present. One minute. 1 minute. Oh, isn't she cute, that Maya? Chad, your kids are tall, right? Yeah. But don't you think she's tall? Is Maya?
Is that Maya tall?
I don't. Babies are so hard for me to gauge these days.
I feel like my baby face is so short.
I know. So long ago. How's your
My two
nephew?
nephews.
Yeah.
Just your pictures.
Okay.
They're good. This is my new nephew, Timothy.
Aw, he looks pretty solid.
And that is my almost 2-year-old nephew, Henry. He is huge. He comes up almost to your waist.
So they're very close in age, huh? Less than 2 years apart?
Just less than 2 years.
I'm an honorary panelist.
I'm gonna look Say it again? Okay. It's time. You do it, man. I'm sitting down. Maya. You know, I literally.
All right, everyone, it's that magic time. Wrap it up because you are out of time and it's time to present to the other groups. So if I could ask for the group or a representative from the group to come up to the podium and present your presentation to everyone. We have 5 minutes for this, so we'll try to limit it to 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes.
It's a minute presentation.
Minute presentation. Just give us the elevator pitch of what you are going to propose.
Don't look at screens.
That's right.
And do not be distracted by the cute baby who's up here. Thank you.
Should we maybe say, let's get her in?
Here, Lisa, come stand at the mic.
All right.
Okay. Sure. Okay. Hi, everybody. We are Team Sandwich Stories. Okay.
I think we should just look at those. There it goes.
Okay. Hi. We are Team Sandwich Stories, and in our concept for our 10-foot square space, as you can see on our lovely infographic over here, we have decided that we have an experience in 3-ish parts. We have conceived this as a way that multi-generational groups can come together, probably 2 people to fit in the space. They select the ingredients for their sandwich. There is a touch screen in which they can swipe over and create a sandwich together. They then use the video screen, the video camera up at the top, and tell a story about that sandwich and the importance of that sandwich to the life of one of the 2 people, which they can then email to themselves, get a copy of the email, the video in the email. But before they do that, as they're entering their email address, they get a pop-up or a screen that says, "Did you know that there are X number of food insecure households within the local community?" And by doing this activity, the museum is going to be donating 1 sandwich or 1 unit of sandwich to a local food bank to feed these families, and you also get a coupon for the same sandwich in your restaurant. And you get the email an hour later with your video.
Thank you. Yay. Yay. Who's next? Okay, done.
Then you.
Okay, so our idea is the human sandwich. So very simply, as people stand in front of this large display, and I'll ask 3 of my team members to stand up here to help demonstrate. So as they appear in front of the screen, they get replaced by sandwich ingredients. So they form a human sandwich. And every time they exit and enter the screen, there'll be different ingredients, and they never know what ingredients they're gonna be. So this works with it being a very social game, and it also having no instruction necessary, no matter what technological level you're at. But to add an educational component, there's also props around. So you can pick, for instance, the brioche. And if you're holding up this marker in front of the screen, you'll be replaced by different brioches. Right.
Stereotypical.
And you can nominate then maybe get a receipt for your sandwich and order it in the cafe if you decide that you want it.
All right, so we're ready to go. At our sandwich museum, we want you to be the creator. So you're gonna come to our beautiful table, which has a screen on it here, and you're gonna select your items to make your own sandwich. As you do that, and you get your items onto your sandwich, you're gonna have pop-ups where you can learn about the nutritional value of your sandwich. You can learn about if your sandwich already has a name, maybe you've created a Cuban sandwich, you don't even know it. You can learn about the history of your sandwich here. You can actually learn about where the ingredients from your sandwich came. So maybe part of your sandwiches has a rich history in the Southwest. You can learn about that. And then you can actually save and share your sandwich, because we have a little camera here, and we've made it wheelchair accessible because we're nice people. And also we have a stool here as well. The cost is under cost, or under our budget, but if we had more budget, we could use actual tactile objects that you could place onto the table that would then create your sandwich. So you could pick up an actual croissant and make your sandwich from there. So, ta-da!
Yay, Mandy.
Thank you. You guys, oh no, your sandwich has gone missing.
Oh no.
You have to solve this issue. Use these clues in this digital experience that you're standing in front of on a screen to figure out what your lunch is and where you can find it. So there would be a series of clues. The first would be an audio clue. So our example, actually, oh, I shouldn't have put that on there, and I should have made you guys guess what it is. Maybe, there you go. So
We can't see it.
there's an audio clue that's a Jewish fiddling song that plays. So maybe someone from one generation will have an idea, others might not. They'll start a conversation. What does this mean? Then they'll play a little video clip on a screen of the interior of a historic New York City deli. Then we'll see an image of cured meat very close up. Is anybody getting ideas? We're getting there, we're getting there. And then there'll be a common condiment. So for this, you'll see either Russian dressing or Thousand Island dressing. You guys are getting close, right? So the final clue would be a smell, if that's possible in this interactive, which you'd get that crisp, awesome smell of sauerkraut, meaning that your sandwich is a Reuben. Exactly. All right, that's right.
Okay, you almost made some close about the interesting, because where I'm from, it's made with smoked meat. It's corned beef for everybody else. It's interesting how it's culturally diverse.
Let's the three of us do this.
We've added
Yay,
a panelist.
first of all, congratulations.
Yeah.
Yes, we've added a really cute panelist.
Yeah.
I know. I know. Don't even. You can't look at any of the rest of the four of us.
I know.
Wow. Cool.
So I guess today we hope that kind of summarizing all of your your great ideas, that in thinking about an from the NCMA, right? In thinking about an RFP process where there's pros and cons to having different RFPs. The Charrette and for the NCMA, it's okay, I'll wash it. It can be very open-ended, and you can still find really great results. And also, you can have something like what Seema talked about. But I think what was the overlap was having that core idea or message that you want to really communicate through your interactive or through your idea. So an RFP, they have their pros and cons. They have their different places in a museum. But hopefully, this open-ended charrette allowed you to think that it could be this flexible process that your museum can go through.
My summary is that you need to make sure that you have a sort of solid content framework that you can scale, and that you don't focus on the size, but you focus on the ideas first. And also, really importantly, don't discount your professional opinion. Make sure you blend that with your visitor experience data.
dynamic duo. What Maya said. We just wanted to emphasize that even though the RFP was pushing you towards screens, you don't always need to go with screens. And so try to keep it more open-ended and be open-minded when your vendors submit ideas that are not necessarily screen-based.
And it was fun to see some of these ideas that got away from the screen and that were about physical movement, that were about social interaction and that sort of thing. What I most enjoyed about listening in to some of the groups was the joy and the fun of working in this way among creative groups. And so I would encourage museum workers, you know, we've talked a good bit about the culture of workplaces. And this is one of those spots where a way of working from digital teams, I think can increase joy within workspaces. If we can be open and creative about ideas, it's a fun way to work. And I think we saw that in here.
Questions?
Thank you all for participating. If there are any questions, we'll be able to answer them. So if this were an actual charrette process, after the presentation, we would put them all up on the wall, and you would all collectively be voting on which ones
Which one
you
did
wanted.
you choose?
Yes. So, okay. Shall we go through and show of hands? Do we want to have a contest? Okay. What was your group's?
Sandwich story.
Sandwich
Okay.
Discussion of culture through the building of the sandwiches and the ingredients, and tapping into that mandate of prompting a dialogue about what was it, political and social issues with the food security element, and donating to a local food bank.
Okay. And what was your group?
It was the human sandwich.
The human sandwich. Okay. Group in the back, what do you want to call yours? The missing sandwich. Okay, so we had sandwich stories, human sandwich, sandwich table, missing sandwich. Show of hands, sandwich stories. Okay. Show of hands, human sandwich. Okay. Show of hands, missing sandwich. Show of hands, sandwich table.
I think it's human sandwich.
Okay. I think we need to have like a showdown between human sandwich and missing sandwich. Yeah. Okay, okay. Narrow this down.
It's a voting charrette.
And also in a real process.
Yes.
You can taste the best idea.
Yes.
Well, I think it's one idea, it's what gets
Yes. As has been pointed out here, you can combine ideas.
and make a super mystery.
Okay. So we've got human sandwich and missing sandwich. We're having the missing human sandwich.
Missing humans.
This is getting a little bit strange, but okay. Show of hands for the missing sandwich. Show of hands for the human sandwich.
Wow. Yeah, so show of hands for the mystery human sandwich.
Okay, show of hands for the mystery human sandwich. Okay. In a real charrette process, what you would be doing is you would be weighing the options of each and talking about what works and what doesn't work and having a conversation about it. But thank you all so much for participating. I hope you got something out of this. And yeah, have a great MCN.
Thank you.